Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow rock dwellers. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. The liberals don't want you, but we do. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the Doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. Nasir, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
Rick, it's a pleasure being back here once again, starting off another great week here. And you know what? It's just another great day to be alive and well and free and living in the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world, bar none. I see you've got the American flag unfurled behind yourself.
There it is.
I've got my American flag on a banner here with my Mount Rushmore of conservatives. What could be better? What could be better?
Well, what could be better? Well, let's talk about a few things in the news. Apparently that there's a new study that shows, contrary to what the left says, contrary to what they say, is America is less racist under Donald Trump.
It certainly is. I mean, this is what's been happening. The amazing part about this whole thing here, Rick, is that people thought, and I think this is because of what happened with the alt-left media, the left-stream media, what we call that Democratic State Party-controlled media. Every single time there was anything that was put in play, if you said anything at all against President Obama, against his administration, immediately you were going to be labeled a racist. Mm-hmm. I mean, policy-wise, you couldn't fight policy-wise. You couldn't fight if you wanted to have a personal attack. Obviously was going to be deemed as racist. But what's happening now is that these polls are coming out and they're finding out that, you know what, under Donald Trump, no, that America is less racist right now than it was before. Because remember what happened with the case when President Obama, it happened, I believe it was at Harvard professor, and they said the police acted stupidly.
Yes.
And then immediately in the Trayvon Martin case, that would have been my son. So it seemed like every single time that Barack Obama came down on a situation, race was always involved. And it seemed that instead of taking the path that he should have, which is what is good for America, he always seemed to be coming down on one side. And it seemed that he was coming down on the African American, on the black side, and always siding against, whether it was white cops or white, the white demographic. I mean, that's the whole thing that happened with Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. So all these things that's happening right now is that just showing basically that even though the mainstream media would like to have you think that every time Trump talks, it's a racist. Even what's his name, De Niro. I think he keeps coming out with these rants when he's always dropping the F-bombs and everything and saying that he's a racist, F-bomb. Even when he came out this last time at one of these elite Hollywood fests or whatever, he was literally booed when he started basically going on his rant. So I think people are sort of catching up to it, but the problem, Rick, is, as you know, as long as the mainstream media is out there, they're going to continue, because you know what? As soon as you label someone as a racist, if they don't have thick skin, it's really tough to try to fight that, because most people, they're taken aback by that, and they don't want that thing flung at them.
No. Well, Nasir, I was not a supporter of Barack Obama. I did not want to see him elected as president. But the one thought that I had when he was elected as president, finally, we might be able to put aside this idea that America is racist.
Correct.
That's the one thing that I thought would happen. But you're right. Barack Obama became the great divider. And I think he divided America more than anyone since the Civil War. During the Civil War, we were separated north and south. We're separated ideologically over states' rights and over slavery. But Barack Obama divided us black and white. He divided us conservative, liberal. He divided us gay, straight. He divided us Christian, non-Christian. I mean, he divided us men and women. I mean, he did more to divide us than any figure since the days of Abraham Lincoln. I really mean that. So that was disappointing for me. I thought, well, maybe we could have a president who would say, we are healed. But that's not what Barack Obama said. That's not what Barack Obama did. And you were right about that, Professor Gates, when he went up there and said the police acted stupidly. With Trayvon Martin, instead of saying that, listen, this was a young man who died, unfortunately, but also this was a young man who maybe was up to no good, and that we have to wait and find out what the investigation tells us, instead of saying in Ferguson and in Baltimore when we had racial situations, no, we have to wait. We have to wait for the investigation before we make any judgments. He was the master at jumping the gun on these situations.
Knowing full well what was going to happen. And you talk about that thing with Baltimore, remember the hands up, don't shoot incident. And when they basically went in there on the precept that that the whole police department was racist, and the Obama DOJ with Eric Holder had to go inside there and give them all kind of different types of rulings. They had to put in all different types of institutionalized, laws that they would prevent this thing from happening. And even the DOJ under Obama and Eric Holder had to admit that what happened, that whole thing about hands up, don't shoot, was an absolute fabrication, was an absolute lie. But you know what? They milked that for a long, long time, along with their cohorts, Black Lives Matter.
Indeed they did. Nasir, I had a conversation with a very intelligent lady the other day. Intelligent, I think, but she was a little bit misguided. We got on the conversation of Donald Trump and how she disliked Donald Trump. And the conversation, as I said, was really interesting. It went from the economy to Donald Trump being a racist to Donald Trump being the next Hitler and whatever. And when it came to the economy, what I said to her is, black unemployment is at an all-time low. Black home ownership is at an all-time high. Donald Trump is against abortion, and when you consider that 40% of abortions take place are African American women or black women, how can Donald Trump be a racist? Because if Donald Trump was a racist, he'd want to see blacks out on the street. He would want to see blacks without a job. He'd want to see black abortions because that would limit or lower the black population. No. He is, under his leadership, as I said, black unemployment is at an all-time low. Black employment at an all-time high. Black home ownership all-time high. He's against abortion, so how can you call him a racist? How can you call him a racist? So, I think out there it's a perception that's being pushed upon a large segment of the population by the lying, stinking, left-leaning media.
Right.
They're still selling this idea of Donald Trump. Oh, also, the idea that she was calling him another Hitler. I said, why do you do that? And she says, well, look at our economy. Our economy is doing great. And that's the same thing that was happening in Germany during the days of Hitler. They thought their economy was going great. I go, whoa, you can't equate the two. Well, actually, you cannot equate the two. Our economy is doing well. And because of that, you're saying that, well, we could have another Hitler? Again, using the idea of abortion, Donald Trump is against abortion. He is the most pro-life president we have ever had.
Absolutely.
Hitler was against life. Donald Trump is pro-life. So, again, it is the liberal media that's selling these lies to people.
Absolutely, 100%.
That's why we're here at a conservative convention. Hey, Nasir, we do need to go to a break. We've got 3 great guests joining us once again. I know we want to tell our audience about them. But for right now, this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And today's show, like all our shows, is being brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcast of our show, check out our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. On there, you'll find replays of our radio show, our TV show, a lot of great articles, a lot of terrific information. And as I said, that's CCRShow.com. Don't look for us on Facebook. Facebook has banned the Conservative Commandos. You cannot put up anything with a link to our website on it. Facebook has banned it, saying it violates their community standards. I wonder how their advertisers feel that Facebook, I'm talking about the Facebook advertisers, I wonder how they feel that Facebook is ignoring, banning a large percent of their members, and that's conservatives. So, Nasir, we've got three great guests joining us. Who will we be speaking with?
We're going to be speaking with our first guest, is going to be Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who's a representative from Missouri's 4th District. She's going to be talking to us about her article, "The Equality Act Would Lead to the Death of Women's Rights." Our next guest is going to be Robert Natelson, and he's a former law professor. He's a known constitutional scholar. He's going to be speaking to us about his article, which was "Democrats Show the Need for Real-World Experience in Congress." And finally, we're going to be speaking with Vicki Alger She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. She is a research fellow at the Independent Institute, and the articles that she's written about today are two of them, actually. Both are time-specific: Millennials and the Moral Case for Free Markets. And her other article is going to basically talk about how Wisconsin schools of choice get more bang for the buck for every educational buck that they spend. So once again, Rick, 3 great guests coming up.
All right, indeed. Well, Nasir, let's talk about leftist policies never work.
Well, you know what? This is something that we talked about, just to bring one of them up. Remember sometime back, almost 2 years ago, when New Jersey instituted the soda tax?
I think that was actually Pennsylvania.
Was it? I think they instituted one. I'm looking at the one here from New Jersey. I'm sorry, Philadelphia.
Which
yes.
is the other side of the
river.
river.
The other side, right. Philadelphia tax. You would know. Anyways, what they basically did was they said that this was all instituted for what again? Health. That we're all talking about people's health. You know, no sugary soft drinks. What's going to happen? Let's just get on this health kick, and we're going to bring in so many dollars that we're going to be able to fund diabetes research. We're going to be able to fund, diabetes clinics. I mean, this was the whole idea for it. What did they find? Rick, they found that within the city limits where this thing was imposed, not only did it drop revenue coming into the city, because obviously those tax revenues weren't coming, people were spending the extra 10, 15 minutes to go to the outskirts of the city. So here's what happened. 3 things happened. 2 of them big time. One was, we always know that the tax revenues diminished. 2, the businesses that were there, well, guess what? Since their sales fell, because if they weren't going there, a lot of people, when you go into your local 7-Eleven or a local convenience store, a small mom and shop grocery store, even a large grocery store, you just don't go in there to buy 1 or 2 items. You think you go in there to buy 1 or 2 items, and you come out there with a whole, cart full of stuff.
Absolutely.
So what would happen? They said, you know what? I'm not paying the extra money for these sugary drinks or soft drinks. They went outside the city limits. They bought from over there. And then the third thing that happened was stores had to start laying off workers inside the city because revenues and sales dropped. So here again, it might have felt good. You're doing something so great. It's going to feel good for the people. But I'll tell you what, economics doesn't replace feelings or making people feel good about themselves or what they're going to eat. So once again, it proved. Oh, and guess what? What they thought that the consumption of non-sugary drinks was going to increase stayed about the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nasir, another thing you could tack onto this is minimum wage increases.
Yes.
How that has a negative effect. I went into our local Walmart the other day. Huge Walmart. And there were only 2 registers with checkers.
Yes.
And what they're doing is they're forcing you to use the self-checkout or the self-checkout scanners. So usually you'd go in there, it'd be 5 or 6 checkers. Well, there were 2, and they were directing people to use the self-checkout lines. Okay? And why is that? I happen to think, or it's my belief, that it is because of minimum wage increases, that stores are just finding it more profitable. Lay the people off. Let's use these self-scanners. So again, minimum wage, along with, like you were talking about, this beverage tax.
I mean, the same things happen, like you said, you're right. You're right. The same thing's happening at the fast food stores. Burger King, McDonald's now, at a lot of these locations, when you go in, there's 2 or 3 booths that are set up there, and you start placing the order that you want.
Yep.
And it gives you your ticket, and you go wait in the line there. And they only have 1 or 2 people taking it. So you're right. This is all, again, to feel good. What about with AOC? Remember where she was bartending in New York?
Yeah.
That establishment has been forced to close down because the owners themselves attributed that the $15 minimum wage hike that is going to be implemented slowly, they can't handle it over there. They can't do it. Mm-hmm. So that place is closing down, if it hasn't closed down already.
Well, stupid is as stupid does, Nasser. Seattle was like the first major city to try this $15 minimum wage. And what they found out in Seattle was it didn't work. There was a lot of businesses that were closing down. Now, don't you think mayors around the country, governors around the country would look at that example and say, hey, we've got to rethink this idea. Look what happened in Seattle. Look at all the businesses that closed in Seattle. Look at all the businesses that moved out of Seattle because of this minimum wage increase. No, they're too stupid to look at lessons learned from somebody else. They got to learn them themselves. But that's politics anyway, Nasser. That's politics anyway. Well, let's talk about Gallup poll, and the economy is good news.
Absolutely. I mean, here's another thing basically we're talking about where you're talking about where Donald Trump right now, even for example, some of the late night show hosts, Bill Maher basically was saying, listen, we can't ignore the fact that the economy is roaring. I mean, it is out there. Wages are up. People's confidence is high. They said that there was over 7.5 million jobs that were available, and most of these, were not, minimum wage jobs that are out there. So all of this is happening out there, and some people are also saying that they're trying to find it hard to sort of understand with the economy the way it is, incumbency, for presidential elections. I mean, that's pretty much it. They always talk about it's the economy, stupid. But some of these people in the polling, they're still trying to wonder, what is it that's keeping down President Trump's numbers, in either the high 40s or just barely hitting 51%, or 52%. They're saying that in a normal, what they call normal presidency, that he should be 15 to 20 points higher. And I keep thinking, Rick, it's got to be the way that the polling, we've talked about this thing before, how that's always slanted,
well, what about
skewed
the media?
more.
What
the media too, hitting them every single day, 24/7 for 2 years, that they're going to impeach him, and then you've got that low information crowd that basically believes this crap. Because that's all they're hearing.
If you go on Yahoo News or Google News and you look at their headlines, I would say the first 3 or 4 headlines that you'll see is anti-Trump information.
Absolutely.
Anti-Trump information.
And we talked about this thing before. Who's controlling the information that you're getting? Mm-hmm. I mean, who do we have to rely on? It's the big tech companies. So when you Trump put in Google and you type in, Trump poll economy, you know what? You might not get the best stories right away.
No, you
don't. That story is buried down there. And how many people are going to search through, 8,000-9,000 pages to see where the best story is about the polling out there? And you're not going to hear it on, the mainstream media, just like you said.
Yeah. Hey, now, so I want to move on to something else here. You talked about the late night show host. Let's talk for a minute about ESPN and how it's reversed its policy, or it's reversed its focus from politics to sports. Because like CNN, CNN just laid off 300 people. Like CNN, ESPN is losing revenue. They had to lay off a bunch of people. I would say part of the reason is that some of the crappy sports they show, like, excuse me, who wants to watch women's college softball? Okay. But beyond that, I think there has been a backlash on they have taken a sports network and tried to turn it into a political network.
Well, the ESPN, which I sense with the Exceptionally Stupid People's Network, basically. I mean, this is what they tried to do. Every time they had somebody on there that spoke something about something conservative or that slant in sports, they fired him. And look, here's the way I look at it. I don't care who it is. If I'm watching the World Series or I'm watching a football game or a basketball game, you know what? If Rush Limbaugh was on there, I still wouldn't want to hear about politics. So it's not about the left or the right. It's that this is the thing. You just want to take a break from all of that.
Absolutely. I like taking a break from
Yeah.
it. I do. I like to watch a ball game. I like to
Absolutely.
watch a movie. You know, people say to me all the time, well, what talk radio shows do you listen to? I say, well, I do one, so I don't necessarily listen to Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity. And as far as sitting down in the evening, I generally have my computer on my lap working on tomorrow's show. I'm not necessarily interested in turning on Fox or CNN for a while. I wanted something to get away with it. Thank God it's baseball season. I can watch the Phillies. But, you know, you can't be focused on politics 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's great to have that break away from it. But when you were watching ESPN, especially with a lot of their commentators, that's what they wanted to talk about, politics.
Absolutely. And ESPN was charging their, their cable companies a premium. Most people, when you're adding on a channel, a different network or a different station, you're paying anywhere from, for some of them, maybe 50 to 75 cents to maybe a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
ESPN was charging a premium to be added on, almost up to $9.
Wow.
And you know what people ended up doing? Canceling that part from their
cutting the cable.
Cutting the cable. They were doing that.
The cable.
They lost a tremendous amount of revenues. So many of their people they had to let go that you're talking about. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then they had people like Jamel Hill, remember?
Oh,
the black lady who came every other time she came on talking about sports, talking about how Trump was a white supremacist, a white nationalist. And, you know,
Keith Olbermann was the same way, you know.
Absolutely.
And he was so popular. He went off. He had his own show, Not For Long. All right. He's back on ESPN. By the way, he's not talking politics anymore. But you're right, Nasir. People want a break from politics. They did. There's so much of it. They just need to get away from it. They need to get away from it. Sports is or can be one of those getaway points, but not so much. Hopefully ESPN is learning a lesson for it. Hey, Nasir, we do need to take a break and get our first guest on. We got a very special guest, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. She's going to be coming on and talk about this Unequality Act that's being forced down the throats of America by a very small segment of our society. And we've got some great guests here. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host is Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And don't go away. We will be right back after this break.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Nasir Shaikh and yours truly, Rick Trader. And Nasir, we have a very special guest with us. Please make that introduction.
Thank you, Rick. We have Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, who is a representative for the Missouri's 4th District since 2010. She serves on the House Armed Services Committee as well as the House Agricultural Committee. Prior to her time in politics, she taught family and consumer sciences. She also served as spokesperson for the Coalition to Protect Marriage. Congresswoman Hartzler, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We wanted to get right to it. There was an article that you wrote, and it was the Equality Act would lead to the death of women's rights. Now, obviously, it's been 4 days since that passed in the House, with 8 Republicans, voting for the passage. But since we know that this isn't going to go anywhere in the Senate, and obviously, even if it did, we know that Trump would, veto it. What is the reason right now to continue to sort of shine the light on this inequality bill? In parentheses, obviously.
Well, I think it's just like you said, to shine a light on the misconceptions or the mistruths that are being stated about this bill. In fact, I believe that they are using women to advance the liberal agenda, and it's actually harmful to women. And I think it's important that the American people know this, because they're not going to give up on this. They've introduced this bill for many years now, but now that they have Nancy Pelosi as the speaker, they feel like they have some traction, and indeed they did pass it out of the House. So they're going to keep chipping away at this, and if the American public, especially American women, believe that this is good for them, then they could succumb to this messaging attempt that they are trying. So I think it's very important for the American public to know absolutely how devastating this bill is.
And Congresswoman, isn't it also probably in a way that obviously when we take a look at this bill, we obviously see that there's a tremendous amount of inequality in it, but isn't it also perhaps a positive maybe in this way that at least it puts the members of the House on both sides where they voted on a bill that would actually promote inequality of women, so that they basically, there's a record of it, that they stood behind it with their vote?
Well, I believe it will come back in next election to haunt some good representatives who unfortunately voted the wrong way on this bill and succumbed to the lies that have been told about it. This bill hijacks the 1964 Civil Rights Act to enshrine as a protected class, in addition to the current classes of race and sex, sexual orientation and gender identity. And basically, it's a top-down, government-imposed discrimination against anybody who has differing views of human sexuality, gender, and marriage, and it would give individuals no repercussions or no rights, to go to court and to argue against this, including it's a violation of women's privacy, and that they will have to be forced to share their bathrooms with individuals who identify as female, even though they may be male. Women's sports will be devastated. Already we're seeing instances where trans women are racing, competing, and beating biological girls in track races, in boxing, in cycling, and you name the sport. I wonder and shudder what this is going to do down the road for all women's sports, and certainly the Olympics, I think, will eventually never be the same. But it's going to impact women's domestic violence shelters. We've already had examples of a shelter in Alaska where a transgender man came to the shelter and demanded to spend the night there, but the shelter was only for women. And when they referred him elsewhere, then he sued them, and they're being charged with discrimination and may have to, eventually shut down their services. And so this is just a few of the examples that can happen. We've also had the medical profession impacted by this. We've had 2 hospitals who are Catholic hospitals in New Jersey and California who have refused to give a sex change operation to a teenager, an underage youth, because they did not believe in their medical opinion that was best for that youth, and they're being sued for discrimination. So the ramifications go on, and we've got to expose how dangerous this bill is and make sure people do not support it and do not ultimately support candidates who run for office who support these things.
We're here speaking to Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler of the Missouri's 4th District. And Vicki, on the other side, I've got my producer, Rick Trader, who I know is itching to ask you a couple of questions as well. So, Rick?
Congresswoman, I got a press release from Families First New Jersey, and in there they also had some very alarming facts about this bill. One, churches would be forced to host same-sex ceremonies. Churches would lose tax-exempt status for non-compliance. And also that churches or religious organization taking overnight trips, including sports or mission trips, they cannot segregate rooms by biological gender. Congresswomen, are these facts or fiction?
I think all it takes is one person to go to court and to make this case, and I think that is going to happen somewhere in this country, and it could decimate the rights of churches and religious freedom that is so foundational for our country, because whether it's churches or like Little Sisters of the Poor who were able to go to court and say based on their religious beliefs the government cannot force them to provide contraception, they wouldn't have a leg to stand on in that this bill specifically excludes the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which had been used for a long time to exempt entities from having to comply if it's based on a deeply held religious belief. And so this is very dangerous for churches, for what is taught in schools, but for our religious freedoms, this is a very serious threat, absolutely.
Congresswoman, it seems like every time we try to give somebody more rights, give them their equity, per se, it infringes on somebody else's rights. I mean, am I thinking too far outside the box?
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, this tramples on somebody else's right and forces everybody to have the same belief. And our country was built on tolerance and being able to, in the public square, maybe have disagreements. This would force individuals to have to adhere to one certain set of beliefs at the expense of their deeply held beliefs, and that's just not right.
Congresswoman, one more question, and if we do have the time, I think another thing that I've read about this, which is very alarming, that doctors would be forced to do procedures, not forced to do certain procedures on girls, for instance, mastectomies as young as 13. And I only bring this up, if this is true, I only bring this up to alert our audience about the perils of this bill.
Yes, that is one of the real concerns with this, that no longer would you be able to say, this is against my deeply held beliefs, I don't believe this. You could be called that you were guilty of discrimination because you are not providing this service to this patient. And it's very alarming that doctors and nurses would be forced to participate in these or leave the profession. It also is a real threat to parents. We have an instance in Ohio where parents had their parental rights taken away from them and given to the grandparents because they refused to agree to hormone blockers for their 16-year-old daughter who wanted to transition to become a male. They did not believe that was in her best interest, yet she went to a counselor and a hospital. They disagreed with the parents, and so then they went to court and started the procedures to remove this child from the home, and they did. And so This is a huge threat to parental rights. to the medical profession, to churches, to religious, and to school, and to girls, and to nonprofits. I mean, this is just a devastating, dangerous bill. It's got to be stopped. In the Senate, we're very hopeful it won't be brought up, but they're going to keep pushing this, and the American public needs to know the truth behind this and to push back on the narrative when someone tries to claim that this is about equality. It is absolutely not. It is about inequality and advancing one person's beliefs at the detriment of somebody else's.
Congressman, what do our viewers and listeners out there need to do?
Well, right now, I'd encourage them to contact their senator and make sure that they understand they do not support this. They don't want them to take it up now, or they don't want it, if this is put as an amendment into a larger bill, such as a future spending bill or budget bill, that they will not support the whole package. Anything that this bill is put into needs to be opposed, and they need to let their senators know that.
Congressman Vicky Hartzler, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless. And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Rob Natelson. He has written a very interesting article. Democrats show the need for more real-world experience in Congress. Don't go away. We will be right back with our next guest.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our show, best place, check out our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. And you can find rebroadcasts of our radio show there, our TV show, a lot of great information, a lot of terrific articles. With that, Nasir, our next guest is with us. The honor of the introduction is yours.
Thank you, Rick. We have Robert Natelson, who has divided his professional life between the private sector, non-for-profit, as well as the private for-profit sector. He's also worked at the state and local government, a former law professor. He's a nationally known constitutional scholar. Currently, he's a consultant who serves as a senior fellow in the constitutional jurisprudence at the Independence Institute in Denver. Robert, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
It's great to be with you, Dr. Shaikh. You know, and thank you very much for mentioning the private sector experience. Some people hear that I was a law professor for 25 years, and so they think I've lived in an ivory tower, and that's not really been the case.
Well, considering we're going to be talking about your article, talking about public and private sector work, it would seem there. But there's a couple of words there that I didn't think were allowed to be spoken in Denver, which is constitutional jurisprudence or independence, for that matter.
Well, I think the new progressive Colorado legislature is at the point of banning them.
Okay.
We'll see if they get away with it.
All right. Well, your article that you wrote, basically, Democrats show the need for more real-world experience in Congress. Give us a sense. You had some great background material for a lot of people. I think we sort of know that in the background. It always seems that conservatives always go into the real world and starting jobs, starting businesses, signing paychecks from the front and the back, whereas liberals and leftists seem to gravitate and go right into, the government sphere or into teaching or academia. Do you think that's ever going to really change?
I don't know. I became interested in this subject because of something you just mentioned. When I was applying to be a law professor, I was stunned because the people that were being hired for the most part were people who had no real world experience at all, maybe had served in a law firm for 2 or 3 years or with a judge for 2 or 3 years, and that was it. And I had practiced law for over a decade and run another business and so forth. And so it's very different from medical school. As you know, doctor, in medical school, you've got to be really hands-on. I mean, you have to be able to deal with real bodies. In law school, it's very highly theoretical, and I think that helps to explain why the law schools are so far to the left. Now, the article details the biographies of some of the leading Democrats in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, the last 2 presidents, and essentially says these guys have never experienced the real world. I mean, Gerald Nadler is a great example. He was the head of the House Judiciary Committee. He was actually elected to the New York State Legislature before he graduated from law school. And he has done nothing else but serve in public life all those years. Another good example is Chuck Schumer. He went into the New York City Legislature, I think about 6 months after he graduated, never held a private sector job. And the resumes of people like Nancy Pelosi, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama are very similar.
Well, do you think, for example, that one thing that seems that each of these people that you mentioned in your article, Pelosi, Schumer, Nadler, and some of the others, they seem to get ensconced into these districts where incumbency is literally, it's a stronghold. It's just a gated community, so to speak, that nobody's ever going to be able to climb that wall other than the people that are already there. Were they able to did they sort of pre-see this a little bit, or was it just sort of the areas that they sort of were in where the voters, where their voting was, and they just became powerful in that thing and rose through the ranks? Is that really what happened?
I think there's several different comments to make here. First, many of these people grew up in these districts, grew up in these areas where they were never really exposed to conservative points of view. Secondly, in my experience, and have been a Republican Party activist, is that the attitudes in the Republican Party are different from the attitudes in the Democratic Party for reasons other than you mentioned. You mentioned accurately that we want Republicans to have done other things. But there's also a feeling that Republican candidates, before they get nominated, should pay their dues in some way or another. The Democrats will take a bright young person and put him in a safe district, figuring that he's going to be elected in that district. And very often, to get chosen for that is luck. I mean, getting in your initial position in politics is often a matter of luck, and then it becomes very difficult to dislodge you. And of course, the people who rise to the top of the House of Representatives or the Senate are people in safe districts because there are no term limits. The committee assignments are based principally on seniority. And so naturally, a guy like Chuck Schumer with 38 years experience in Congress is more likely to reach the leadership than someone from a more moderate district who has to cater to conservative as well as liberal voters.
Well, you know, one of the things that Segue basically talked about was term limits. Speaking of those, you know, our founding fathers, when you look at the documents, when you look at the Federalist Papers, when you look at everything that they basically wrote upon, the letters that they wrote back and forth to each other, debating and discussing the foundation, you know, of this great country, there are two things that if we could go back in time, that if I could talk about, was that the term limits was something that I don't think that they ever foresaw, because they talked about citizen representation. Basically, They never thought that this was going to be that people are going to be there for 40 years. And also lifetime appointments as Supreme Court justices, but that's a whole nother topic. But speak of term limits, for example, that's something basic that's, you know, now that the way everything is, Democrats and Republicans, this is a job basically, you know, for them. I mean, this is the way that they earn their living. So do you think it's ever going to be able to, you know, come down the pike that these people are going to put term limits on themselves?
Well, I think that you're right to mention term limits on judges. You're also right to say that that's a different topic. Let me just say I favor them because the demographics have very much changed since the founding. The reason I think why the founders didn't put term limits on Congress was that the federal government was to be a government of strictly limited powers, broad powers, but still limited. And they could not conceive of somebody who really wanted to serve in government forever, someone without a life, and they didn't think that the American people would necessarily elect such a person. As to the question you pose, will they ever propose a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on themselves? I think that's pretty improbable, don't you? Which is why I'm a senior advisor to the Convention of States movement, which favors bypassing Congress to propose a constitutional amendment for term limits, among other things.
Well, another question I had to ask you, too, is that you gave us a great list of those Democrats that basically have no real, you know, life within the private sector and all within the public. Are there any Republicans that you know of that sort of fit that same bill? Or was your research strictly limited to the Democrats?
Mitch McConnell sort of fits it. The main difference with Mitch McConnell is he spent a little bit of time in a private law firm. These other Democratic leaders have not. And the other thing is that the Democratic leadership tends to be formed from graduates of very liberal East Coast schools. So Schumer, for example, went to Harvard College and Harvard Law School. Nancy Pelosi, even though she now represents California, went to Trinity College, which is now Washington Trinity University, very liberal school in D.C. Mitch McConnell, on the other hand, went to the University of Kentucky. So you can certainly identify this same phenomenon among certain people on the Republican side, but it's far less extreme.
Now, we've had, you know, quite a number of the Republican candidates also that have gone to these sort of liberal, you know, bastions of education as well.
Yeah, in fact, I like those kind of candidates. Yes. I went to Cornell myself, you know, and of course I dealt with an overwhelmingly liberal environment, and you learn to operate in it. If you come out of that, you know that you you know that you've got some principles.
Absolutely.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest this segment is Rob Natelson. Natelson, correct? Natelson,
right,
who
Natelson.
is a senior fellow in constitutional jurisprudence at the Independent Institute. And we're discussing Democrats show the need for more real-world experience in Congress. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasir Shaikh. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. I want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages in Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Our guest this segment is Rob Natelson. He is a senior fellow in constitutional jurisprudence, hard word for me to say, at the Independent Institute. Rob, thank you for holding through that break. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. A lot of people have difficulty with the title. I like it because it has a lot of syllables. The only thing I should make clear is that I'm a senior fellow with the Independence Institute with the CE.
Instead
the
of independent.
Yeah, it's in Denver. It's in Denver. The Independent Institute is another organization.
Well, see, part of the problem is these. I should be wearing them. I hate wearing them. They mar my beautiful face, but we're discussing your article. Democrats show the need for more real-world experience in Congress. And Rob, I have to go back and start this segment of the interview the way you started your column. You say President Trump says the tax code encouraged real estate developers like him to take paper tax losses. And you say, well, many leading Democrat Party officials utterly lack the knowledge of experience. Now, when I read that line, I had to think of our new best friend, AOC, and how that degree in economics at either Boston College or Boston University really taught her how to make a mean martini.
I mean, referring to the fact that she used to be a bartender.
Exactly. Well,
you know, I don't hold that against.
I
don't hold that against her. That's honest private sector work, and that's better than I think what a lot of her colleagues have.
Well, you're absolutely right, then. And you talk about some of her colleagues, and you and Nasir mentioned a few of them. You mentioned Nancy Pelosi was raised the daughter of a Democrat politician. For 32 years, Pelosi has represented a safe Democrat district. She has no business or other private sector background. But, Rob, when she went to Congress, she was a millionaire. Her net worth was about $3 million. Now her net worth, 32 years later, is about $50 million. Explain that to me, Lucy.
Well, I don't really know how to explain that. You'd have to ask her about that. But it's not unprecedented. I mean, I remember, and I'm dating myself here, the 1964 election, Lyndon Johnson running on the Democratic side. And it was pointed out that he started with nothing when he entered his political career. By the time he was vice president, he, or rather more precisely his wife, was worth $14 million. Where do you get that kind of money? Well, you get it actually by doesn't necessarily require corruption, right. but it's a policy of, or a process of transferring power into money, conveying it into money. You saw this with the Clintons. The people would invite Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton to give speeches, pay them six figures for it. It's a way of trying to get close to them.
Well, when we talk about LBJ, he got into the money the old-fashioned way. He married into it. You know, that's
well, not entirely. I think most of it was earned or not earned during the time he and his wife were in politics.
Right. Well, you know, I think this should give new. You know, the TV show Undercover Boss? Maybe this should be required to members of Congress that they actually go out into their districts and go to work for a day or two with their constituents to find out what real life is like.
Yeah, I would suggest to be even better policy that when you vote for these guys, you vote for people who have lived it, have lived real life. You know, the founders often said that an important function of Republican government, important aspect of Republican government, was something they called sympathy. Today we'd call it empathy. And that means a kind of identity of interest, similar feelings, similar values, similar experiences between the people who are governing and the people that they're governed. And if there were a disconnect or conflict of interest between those two groups, Republican government wouldn't work very well. And that's what's happened in the United States. We have literally created a governing class in which the youthful liberal enthusiasms of 18-year-olds become crystallized in the leadership in Congress.
Well, you know, you and Nasir were also talking about term limits, which I'm a big proponent of, because, and you talked about the founding fathers, that they did not foresee politicians becoming career politicians. I really do think that they thought government would be led by men like themselves, part-time volunteers that got together occasionally, dealt with the situations, and then went home. And then when they needed them, they would call like Caesar Rodney from Delaware. You know,
yeah.
Caesar, get on your horse and ride the 40 miles to Philadelphia. We need you.
You know, a good example was George Washington. He was sometimes called the American Cincinnatus after the Roman general who was called from the plow, given a command, defeated the enemy in 18 days, and returned to the plow. You know, we think of George Washington as a great general and a president, but he was also a successful farmer. He was a successful surveyor and explorer. He was probably the wealthiest man in the United States because he was also a successful real estate investor. That's the kind of background that the founders looked for in their leaders.
Well, and that was the type of person who founded the country. And like, I agree. You know, remember who was it? It was the governor of Minnesota, the wrestler.
Jesse Ventura.
Jesse Ventura. I think he had a great idea when he said that he was going to close down the state house and send the legislature home, that when they were there, and they just caused a bunch of problems anyway. I thought that was a great idea.
I think it'd be a greater idea to have a better legislature. I wouldn't want the executive ruling by decree. I mean, that's something that AOC wants in her Green New Deal.
Well, that's part of the problem, you know, with someone being in Congress that young. I believe Churchill was right. If you don't have a heart by the age of 20, if you're not a liberal by the age of 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by the age of 40, you have no brain. I mean, maybe we should, just like I want to up the age of voting, I think we should up the age for people to serve in Congress. Make it 40, at least between the time they get out of high school or college and reach 40, they've got to get some sort of job. Maybe they'd have a little better life experience.
Rick, let me suggest this. If you're not a liberal at the age of 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at the age of 40, then you're probably in Congress.
There you go. Convention of the States. What's the latest on that?
15 states have endorsed the Convention of the States application. Basically, for those who might not be familiar with it, all constitutional amendments, and constitutional amendments have proven great methods of reforming government in the past. That's how we got the Bill of Rights. That's how we limit the president to 2 terms, and how we gave women the vote. But constitutional amendments require approval of 3/4 of the states. But to even get them to the states, they've got to be proposed. And that can be done by a Congress, which, as Dr. Shaikh says, is very unlikely with the case of term limits, or it can be done by a meeting of state representatives called a Convention of the States, or a Convention for Proposing Amendments, that requires 2/3 of the states, or 34, to call. And right now, 15 states have endorsed the Convention of States application, which would call a meeting limited to considering term limits, fiscal limits on the federal government, and other limits on the federal government.
Rob Natelson, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Please tell our audience how they could follow you and read your articles.
Well, one thing you could do is check out my book, which is located either at Barnes & Noble or...
Wait, we weren't told about a book.
We weren't told about it. I have a number of them out, but the one that's...
You have one you could hold up?
No, I don't. But one that's written for the layman is called The Original Constitution, what it actually said and meant. And it's an honest look at the meaning of the Constitution right after the Bill of Rights. It's not a conservative book or a liberal book. It's an honest book. If you're interested in seeing my articles, the best option is probably go to independenceinstitute.org and click on the Constitution tab.
Well, Rob, it's been great having you on here. I hope this is the first time of many. Seriously, I didn't know that you had books, or I would have invited you to talk about them a little bit, or at least have one there and you could hold it up and say, here's my book. This is what it looks like. This is the title. This is me. Buy the book.
Just enter Natelson and Original Constitution in Amazon. It'll pop right up.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Yep.
This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be talking about millennials and the moral case of free markets. Don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest, Vicki Alger from the Independent Women's Forum.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
And once again, thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is the Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And Nasir, we do have our next guest with us. Please make her feel welcome.
Thank you, Rick. Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. She's also the author of a book called Failure, the Federal Miseducation of American Children. She's served in various federal policy and educational policy matters for the Trump White House. She's also been on numerous shows, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. You name the show, she's been on it. Vicki, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.
Well, great. Well, there's a few articles that you've written here, but let's start off with one. One is you wrote Millennials and the Moral Case for Free Markets. Before we get into that, some of our new listeners and also viewers here on our AUN network in California, give us an idea of what are you doing or what's being done at the Independent Women's Forum. What do they do?
Well, Independent Women's Forum, we help inform the debate. As you know, the default is so often set to, if there's a problem, we need more government, higher taxes, more regulation. We have to, in a sense, reboot. And what IWF does is we show the alternatives. And pretty much if there is a problem, liberty is going to be the answer. And what IWF helps people do is kind of connect the dots to see why liberty is always a better than answer than more intrusive, expensive government.
Well, perfect segue into your article there, The Moral Case for Free Markets. So this is one of those things where, you talk about the different generations, the millennials and Generation Z. What would we do if we didn't have any consonants? I mean,
what are we going to do after Z? What are we going to call them after Z?
Well, we'll probably put a little A or B after them, Generation ZA or Generation ZB or whatever, who knows. But the thing is that what's amazing that I find is that they say that there was a poll taken that 4 out of 10, so 40% of millennials feel that socialism is acceptable. And you also say there's a poll there that 3 out of 10 who basically claim to be, millennial conservatives or Republicans basically have that same answer. So, when you're talking, one more and you're basically at even, on this demographic. And do you think the reason is because that part of history has been whitewashed from history in our schools? It's not really being taught, and they just sort of put this romanticism out on some of these murderous dictators. Like, kids are wearing Che t-shirts out there, basically saying, he's a lover, not a fighter. I mean, come on.
I think there's a huge part of the mystery solved would be that, no, we're not teaching accurate history. So we always have to look at that. And this is what parents can do right now, because we don't wake up and see these poll results magically, mysteriously when young people get to college. This is happening, my goodness, for those of you who live in California, I don't have to tell you, look what's going on with the quote-unquote health standards in the sex ed. They're starting as early as 4 and 5 years old. So parents, look at what is being taught in your children's classrooms, watch those textbooks. But I think we should also stand back too, and what do these young people what have they been exposed to? They have had, their parents subsidize them their whole lives. Mm-hmm. They've had their schooling paid for by their parents and John and Jane Q taxpayer most of their lives. They go to college. So when people talk about socialism and just taking care of people, well, they've been beneficiaries the better part, if not all, of their lives. So this seems perfectly fine. Isn't that how we've always done it? We just need more of it. So that's where folks like us who are on the pro-liberty limited government side of things have to step in and talk with them about what do you really want to achieve, and say this is how free markets and free people can achieve those better than bureaucratic bloated government.
Okay, right. So Vicki, one of the other questions I had to ask is that you basically write in one of your articles here is that more than political necessity, the moral case for capitalism must take center stage. In other words, we should be basically teaching this to our children at an earlier age. And I would basically dare say that probably in the 80s and the 90s, where we probably made the economic case for capitalism, I don't think we made the moral case for capitalism. Could you expound on that a little bit? What's it going to take for us to make the moral case for capitalism?
Well, I think you make a really good point, because we did talk about the economics, and in terms of economics and just the basic math, well, of course, free markets win hands down. But people can eschew math by saying, well, it's too hard for free markets. There are some people left behind. We need a safety net. And of course, that's the segue into bigger, more intrusive government. What we should be saying instead is, let's take the problem of poverty. Let's look at how you make people truly wealthy and self-sufficient. Is you grow the economy so that everybody can participate, not just find jobs, but ultimately be entrepreneurial. And that's something that we're seeing in spades with millennials and Generation Z members, is they want to found companies, and they have a profit motive. They do want to make money. They enjoy the conveniences of the free market, to be sure, but they also have a very strong philanthropic sense. Whether it's we want to make sure that people in developing countries have shoes, clean drinking water, clean environment, what have you. And they're seeing entrepreneurship as the gateway to accomplish all of those goals. So I think if we can focus on that, because you can't reconcile promoting innovation and entrepreneurship with big, bloated, overtax, overspend, overregulate government. So I think that's something that will really resonate with them, particularly as they're, getting their, food delivered, and all sorts of taking advantage of all sorts of amenities the free market has to offer them.
Well, I want to take this segue. You talked about basically, the millennials, and where are we going to formulate these young minds? How are we going to basically give them conservative ideas about liberty, freedom, individualism, all of these? And in one of your articles that you wrote, Wisconsin schools of choice get more bang for every educational buck. I guess we've all known about this. Wasn't it true that almost one of the first acts that President Obama did when he came into office was that he closed down the voucher program for a school that I think there was 100 to maybe 150 girls. I think they were of minorities, mostly Black Black American girls, and they shut that program down. Whereas his two daughters got to go to one of the most prestigious schools that are out there. And isn't this what leftists do all the time? They lecture to us about sending kids to public schools, but when you look at them, almost all the academics, Hollywood hypocrites, the people in Washington, D.C., their kids are going to what? Gated community schools that are top-notch.
No, that's absolutely true. The hypocrisy is really stunning. What President Obama did almost right out of the gate, as you said, is he and his leftist friends in Congress tried to kill the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program. It's the DC voucher program. And this is something that's interesting. The U.S. Department of Education actually has a department called What Works. It's a slim department because one of the only programs that actually works is the DC voucher program.
Sorry,
so let's go ahead and kill that.
Oh, Lord.
But President Trump, thankfully, that program is up and running, and it has sustainable funding thanks to President Trump and some great members in Congress. So that program is up and running and is safe now.
Well, this is something that I learned, and this is one thing that, Rick and I, is that every time we have guests on the show, is that there's always these few nuggets that we always learn and we can put into our tool belt, so to speak, that when we've got to basically, when we're out there talking with people and you're faced with a question, you can basically sling it out there. And one was, I had no idea, but basically you talk about with Wisconsin, I mean, this is it's the oldest voucher program in the United States. You would have thought that would have been in like Washington, D.C. or someplace up in the Northeast.
Oh, it's the longest running modern voucher program. Yeah, it sure is. Maine and Vermont have actually had vouchers since the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Not that you'd hear about it from those folks.
No, absolutely. Absolutely not.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow, one of my favorite organizations in Washington, and that's the Independent Women's Forum. Hey, Vicki, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for just a couple of moments for us?
Absolutely.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, the doctor for the Republic, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We'll be right back, and we're going to pick up our conversation of millennials and the moral case for free markets. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud. The claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and fall for the right time. It's too brutal.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Dr. Nasir Shaikh. And our guest this segment is Vicki Alger. She's a senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. And Vicki has written a couple of interesting articles we're discussing. One is Millennials and the Moral Case for Free Speech. And the other is Wisconsin Schools of Choice get a more bang for the educational buck. Vicki, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, happy to.
Vicki, in your article, the first article about millennials and the moral case for free markets, you write in here, and you were talking about millennials and socialism. So if socialism to millennials is Denmark, not Venezuela, the fact for Denmark to work, the whole original socialist model had to be reformed in a way to empower that. Well, you know, Vicki, when I read that article, read it poorly because I'm not wearing my glasses today, it made me ask this question. What kind of an economic giant is Denmark in the first place? Because I can't remember the last time I actually bought or purchased any product that came out of Denmark. So tell me a little bit about Denmark's economy and why should that even be held as a model for these young socialists?
Well, I don't think they're thinking in terms of Denmark as an economic power, global powerhouse. I'm trying to think of where it would land on the global rankings, and I don't believe it lands in the top 10. I'm not sure if it would be in the top 20 right about now. Now, to be sure, it's a beautiful country. The people are lovely. But when millennials are thinking about socialism, they're not thinking about the full implications of what a full socialist country would be. They actually think it's possible that you could have a country like Denmark without all the nastiness that we see in Venezuela. And the reason why you can have a Denmark is because where it does flourish, it has very good free market economic policies. Now, of course, it has, policies such as high taxes for certain things, universal government-run health care, government preschool, all of these, happy clappy sounding things. But absent its free market, you would not be able to have the wealth, the tax base to support it. And if the taxes got too high, by the way, guess where the wealthy would go? I think it's very interesting to note in a different piece I wrote about Elizabeth Warren's free college, and this ultra millionaires tax. Well, Europe has tried schemes like that, for decades, and even Europe has abandoned those sorts of tax schemes that you would need to even, start an enterprise, the sort of socialist enterprise. But you can't sustain it because the wealthy leave and go on to make money elsewhere.
Vicki, you and Nasir, in the first part of the interview, were talking about what kids are not being taught today, and one of the things I would say is they're not being taught how to succeed in life. We could also talk about what they are being taught, and I'll tell you something else that triggered a thought. We had a guest here on the Conservative Commandos radio show the other day talking about education, and that when Jimmy Carter started the Department of Education, the United States was #1 in academics. Now we're like 17th. I mean, all the money that has been dumped into education. And we hear about these crazy things that kids are being taught today. Do you have a few examples, maybe a couple of your pet peeves, what they're being taught rather than reading, math, and science?
Oh, gosh. Let me start with, I would say, I'm going to start with something controversial. And not controversial for the same reasons you would think. I think we have a problem with death by 1,000 paper cuts. And for example, state lawmakers who would say that they support parental choice in education, so on and so forth, they typically tend to sign on to programs, well, let's teach character education in the schools. Let's teach financial literacy. And this little an hour of coding, because it's Career Technical Education Month or something. We have to stop doing that to the schools. First and foremost, we should just stick to academics. I don't want any sort of value judgments, because how you balance your checkbook, how you live your life, much less what's going on in the disaster that's California with sex education, that's for parents and families. And I think we could take it back even farther. And here's where we get even more controversial. Why do we have to send our children to institutionalized school? Why don't we let parents decide what they're taught, when they're taught it, so on and so forth? And if parents are happy, great. That's better than any overpriced, federally mandated, quote-unquote, accountability scheme in my book.
Well, we can dovetail that with what you just said, Vicki, into the other article you wrote about Wisconsin School of Choice. You're talking this article about bang for the buck, how much better the children in charter schools and private schools are doing than in public schools, and they actually are getting less funding, but they're doing better in their grades.
Just more proof that competition works. This is a study that was just released by Dr. Corey DeAngelis with the Reason Foundation and a fellow at the Cato Institute. And he did something really fascinating. He looked at Wisconsin as we talked about before. It has the oldest modern running voucher program in the country, started in 1990. It's also had independent public charter schools since 1994. So we have a really diverse education marketplace in Wisconsin. Private schools and charter schools each get at least 25% less per pupil funding than district public schools. And wouldn't you know it, both of those schools, private and independent public charter, their students do better on the state standards test. And that is just some really objective, quantifiable evidence that competition works, and we need to be putting the real education experts back in charge, which is children's parents.
Vicki, it's also more proof that just throwing money and buku buckets load of money at education doesn't make children smarter, doesn't help them in school, doesn't help them get better grades. Helps the teachers' unions, right? Helps the teachers, but what is important here? To make teachers rich, to make the teachers' unions stronger, or to educate children?
It's supposed to be to educate children. And
yeah.
I have to tell you, when you look at, this is where parental choice would actually benefit teachers. If you look at the salaries of, say, superintendents, all the way down to the 8th assistant superintendent for administrative streamlining, they're making gobs of money. So are administrators. If we had parents in charge of where the money goes, schools would have an incentive to pay the talent first. And the number one in-house school talent would be the teachers. So they would benefit too. But again, I think we should put parents in charge of money. And in that kind of a competitive system, more money doesn't necessarily mean better. It means we have to put the right people in charge.
All right. Vicki Alger, Senior Fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. Vicki, as usual, we always appreciate your time with us. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and work of the IWF.
Well, please visit us for information about education, economics, all sorts of public policies, right at www.iwf.org.
All right, Vicki Alger, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasir Shaikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We will be back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
Actor Jim Carrey tweeted a hateful message this Saturday suggesting that Alabama's governor should have been the victim of an abortion. And guess what? His tweet is still up there. DNA testing suggests that some 30% of families trying to cross the border aren't even related. And Gibson's Bakery fights back against charges of racism against Oberlin College. We'll look at that and a whole lot more. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless of America.
All right, folks, thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, and when you do, please hit the bell. All right, so last week, Turning Point USA's Candace Owens had her Facebook account temporarily suspended for violating their community guidelines. Here's a report from Fox News. Facebook temporarily suspended, then restored conservative commentator Candace Owens' account this week after she posted about liberal supremacy threat to black Americans. In a statement to Fox News, Facebook said they reinstated her account a day later after determining the post wasn't in violation of community standards. On Thursday, Owens, who is black, posted a statement along with statistics showing the poverty rates among African Americans, whites, and African Americans who are married. The statement read, "Black America must wake up to the great liberal hoax. White supremacy is not a threat. Liberal supremacy is." And that was banned. That's what caused her account to be suspended. And the reason I bring it up is because we see this all the time, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, conservatives under attack, and the way they handle people on the left is so much different. And a perfect example happened this Saturday. Here's actor Jim Carrey and what he tweeted. He says, "I think if you're going to terminate a pregnancy, it should be done sometime before the fetus becomes governor of Alabama." And that's a drawing he included with it. And as of right now, before filming this show, that tweet was still up. That tweet's allowed. That tweet did not violate their community guidelines, which on one hand, I guess that means I won't be demonetized on YouTube for talking about it, but it just shows the double standard that this shows the victim, Kay Ivey, the governor of Alabama, being put through a partial birth abortion procedure to kill her. And that is okay. That is okay to Twitter. I mean, the bill has been labeled controversial, which is very interesting in and of itself, simply because it strives to protect all human unborn life, innocent human life before birth. They're trying to protect it. It's labeled as draconian and extreme, yet New York's bill that allows an abortion all the way up until the moment of birth, fully formed babies can be aborted based on their law, and that's not extreme according to the media or the left. It's just a double standard that's just absolutely stunning, and the left shuts down debate. I mean, this is an issue that warrants debate. I mean, Donald Trump and Mitt Romney have come out saying they don't favor this Alabama law. They said there should be, the usual exceptions. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put out this bizarre tweet saying the GOP doesn't care about babies at all, especially brown or black or poor ones. If they did, they'd adopt the Green New Deal or at least a real climate plan, guarantee health care for all, and they're not take a stand on death caging of babies on our border. So according to her, you have to adopt far left-wing policies in order to support and promote and protect and care about babies. And what's funny is abortion affects blacks way more than any other race. And so this bill actually protects black babies more. And yet they want to go on the attack because it hurts their agenda. It hurts the left's long-term plan. And tweets like Jim Carrey's go just, without review. And the account, like I said, is still up there. All right, let's move to illegal immigration, because the left paints this picture that there's no crisis on the border. They, fought the border wall. And the Washington Examiner put out an interesting story of a pilot program where they were doing DNA testing of the so-called families that were trying to come. Now, the families are the big issue because there's this flood of families trying to seek asylum. And because of the overcrowded, system, a lot of them are released into the country and given a time to show up for an asylum hearing. And of course, they never come. And because this has been going on, now they're trying to cheat the system even more by bringing fake kids, using kids to get in. And here's the report. It says, some of the migrant families arrested at the southern border weren't actual families. In a pilot program, approximately 30% of rapid DNA tests of immigrant adults who were suspected of arriving at the southern border with children who weren't theirs revealed the adults were not related to the children. An official involved in the system's temporary rollout, who has to be anonymous in order to speak freely, told the Washington Examiner Friday. The pilot lasted a few days earlier this month and was used only in McAllen and El Paso. ICE said the Department of Homeland Security would look at the results to determine if it will be part of a comprehensive solution to border issues. Homeland Security has not issued a public statement on its intentions going forward. Well, of course they should use this. If these people are claiming to be families and this small pilot program found 30% weren't even related, that shows abuse. That shows trying to screw over the system so that they can get into the country. And you just knew it was going to happen. At least this DNA testing is something that you can show the Democrats in Congress, say, look, it's happening. We need to close the border. We need some border security, and we need to define and refine this process and reform it. So, all right, I want to move on to Oberlin College because, we dove into this last week and the feedback was really great on this story because it has a lot of ramifications for conservatives going forward. In this case, as you know, shortly after Trump was elected, 3 black students went into Gibson's Bakery, which does business with Oberlin College in Ohio. They stole some stuff, shoplifted, were arrested, and immediately the students led protests on the side of the thieves. All right, they claimed Gibson's Bakery was racist, and they protested, and what it turns out is a lot of the staff, faculty, administrators of Oberlin College were also shared that view. They actually helped with the protests. They helped print out flyers, helped distribute flyers, and so now, even after the suspects ended up pleading guilty and issuing a statement that racism wasn't involved, and for more on what happened last week, check out this link. It was for our Wednesday show, which goes into some of the testimony from trial last week. Now they've moved on, and Gibson's is suing Oberlin for damages and wants to get them. And the way the procedures and the testimony have been going, it's been very interesting. This week, this past week, they focused on a couple of things. They focused on this racism issue, the accusations of that, and just how much the bakery is worth. And here is a report from Legal Insurrection, Dan McGraw, who's been having great coverage. Here's part of what he said. Said the defendants sought to keep out the City of Oberlin police report that listed the shoplifting cases at Gibson's from 2011 to 2016. Judge Miraldi ruled the police report record sorted by crime and date and ethnicity of the perpetrator would be admissible. The police data is important for the plaintiffs because it does not in any way show that Gibson's had any propensity for chasing down black thieves more than whites. In fact, whites were far more likely to be arrested for shoplifting than blacks at this century-old store on Oberlin Town Square. Okay, the report goes on and says the police report finds that there were 40 arrests for shoplifting at Gibson's between 2011 and 2016. 33 of those were college students. Of the 40 arrested, 32 were white, 6 were African American, and 2 were Asians. According to 2010 U.S. Census numbers, those numbers were not much different from Oberlin's overall racial makeup, with 73% white, 14.8% of African American, and 4% Asian. All right. Then they also brought a witness in to show the impact of these protests and these accusations of racism in the negativity that can affect a business in today's social media environment. Deborah Owens, professor of marketing at the University of Akron Business School, and other researchers contend that word-of-mouth consumer buying influences has now extended beyond private conversations between two people to now include every online message imaginable. And that negative comments have much more impact than positive ones. Think of it this way, Owens said, a 1-star rating of a hotel on Yelp will have much more influences than 9 or 10 5-stars. A public relations executive had told the court earlier in the proceedings that when you look up Gibson's Bakery on Google, 27 out of the 30 sites listed have the subject of racism as a topic included on the site. So that's one side right there, showing the negative impact and also showing from police records that Gibson showed no conduct of racism, no history of racism. The other side was trying to value what Gibson's Bakery was worth, because if the jury does find in favor of Gibson's and against Oberlin College, that means Oberlin College is going to have to pay. And the way damages are done, you have compensatory damages, which they seek to find how much of the business, how much of wages and worth the business has lost, so they can put a monetary value on that. There's pain and suffering that goes into that type of penalty as well. And then there are punitive damages, which is not so much to support the victim as to punish the bad guy so they don't do it again. And that in Ohio, according to this report, is capped at twice the compensatory damages. So if in the process, like the plaintiffs, Gibson's Bakeries folks have put together a report that shows that the bakery is worth in excess of $5 million. Well, you double that for punitive damages, and that's quite a hard hit. Now, the defendants want the judge to allow a report that's from their side that says the bakery is only worth $35,000, which is a much easier hit for Oberlin to take. So this whole idea of what the bakery is worth is going to be very significant as this case draws to a close. And we're going to keep on it because it's just fascinating that this bakery is fighting back, that the college jumped head over heels on board with the students who knee-jerked within a day, accusing the bakery of being the bad guys, accusing the bakery of being racist, and coming down on the side of the criminals. It's just insane. So folks, I want to wrap up because this past weekend was qualifying for the Indy 500. And if I had a sponsor, I would still be racing and I'd love to be out there. But this weekend, it was just so great to see folks that I went through racing school and early road to Indy ladder races with, and they're now vying for spots in the Indy 500. This guy I'll put up here, Spencer Piggott, I raced against him. He served as my coach for a little while. He's on the front row. He'll be starting on the front row this Sunday. And my very first teammate, I just want to show you this, Kyle Kaiser. There were 36 people this weekend trying to get to 33 spots. And the 33rd spot going into the very end was held by two-time Formula One champ Fernando Alonso. Kyle Kaiser, my first teammate, was on his qualifying lap, and here's how it ended.
This 23-year-old American could deny a two-time Formula One world champion a shot at motorsport's Triple Crown. This is one of IndyCar's smallest teams, knocking over a global motorsport giant.
Working turn 3, he comes down below the white line, slightly high, but the car looks stable. I'm watching turn 4 apex speed.
Minimum speed, 226 miles an hour. That's great speed. Let's listen to the radio. Yard of bricks, Kyle Kaiser. Has he knocked Alonso out? He has! Oh! Kyle Kaiser and Hulkos Racing are in the Indy 500. Alonso's out. McLaren goes home.
So folks, even if you aren't into racing, that was absolutely incredible. His team, Juncos Racing, is so small, going against the powerhouse McLaren team. And they are in the Indy 500. Kyle Kaiser's in the Indy 500. And Fernando Alonso and his team are going home. It was just absolutely amazing. I can't wait for the race. Folks, that's our show for today. Please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell. And I'll see you on Wednesday. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-minute news hour.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.